Welcome everyone to the May edition of Mytech U, a monthly educational series for technology and business topics. My name is Nathan Austin and I will be your moderator today. This month we'll be holding a panel discussion on the topic of got culture? We put a question mark there because it's important for everyone to have it, and we just wondering, it's a good thing to ponder from time to time. And we are fortunate today to have three panelists who will share their individual stories and experience on today's topic about culture. Okay, for some housekeeping, before we turn to the presentation over to our panel, a couple of notes for the audience. First of all, we really appreciate you joining us today, or whether you're watching this as a recorded version in the future. We are recording it at the moment, as I just mentioned, and we will make the recording available about 24 hours after the presentation, so you can share this to others in the future. The audience is on mute. However, if you have questions, please use the questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will do our best to either interject your question into the conversation or we will follow up with you afterwards. Okay, with that said, we are just going to get started, and I would like to have our panel take it over. So, as I switch to the next slide, Melanie, please tell us a little bit about yourself and about PPL and kind of a little bit of history and your involvement in culture.
Sure, thanks Nathan. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. I work for PPL, or Project for Pride in Living, which is a medium-sized nonprofit in the metro area here in the Twin Cities. PPL was founded in 1972, so we've been around for quite a while. And sort of the pillars of the service we provide land in affordable housing, providing affordable housing, and also employment training services. I've been working with PPL for 18 years as the Director of Administration, and concentrate my work in project management, strategic plan development, space planning and procurement for new developments, including some large-scale renovations, one of which we're in the middle of right now, staff training, board engagement, and general operations. So we're a staff of about 190. So in the nonprofit world, having a job that encompasses many, many things is not out of the ordinary. And in our organization, and maybe it's common, that the topic and the world of exploring your culture, your organizational culture, doesn't really belong to anybody. And so it's been important to me, and we've been having more deliberate conversations about what that means for PPL and how we want to go about exploring that. So we've been doing that for several years, but it's timely that we're in the midst of really taking a look and refining what it means for us right now.
Yeah, as a side note, thank you, Melanie, for the introduction. As a side note, Melanie, Mytech, you said 2010, is that right? About 2010.
Yeah.
Is when we, Mytech and several of our clients we worked with took a trip out to Las Vegas to go to Zappos because from the book Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. So we went out to kind of explore and learn about what they were doing with culture, because they were doing some innovative things. And Melanie was one of the folks that joined us back in 2010. So it's been fun. I think we've both been on that journey for several years. So it's great to have you back on the panel.
Yeah, thank you.
Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself and about Moldcraft.
Okay, so Moldcraft, first off, I gotta apologize. I'm at home in the middle of moving. So if you hear a bunch of crazy noise, that might be it. So
you're okay though, right? So if you hear the noise, you're gonna be okay?
Yeah, I'll be okay. So Moldcraft, we're a manufacturer. We design and build plastic injection molds, primarily for the medical industry. Very tight tolerance, precision molds. A lot of it's used for surgical or implantable into the body. We have 44 employees. We started in 1964, so we're in our 54th year. And that's Moldcraft, I guess, in a nutshell. So I started there as a mold designer right out of college, mechanical engineering, and worked my way up as engineering manager. And in 2007, I got the opportunity to buy Moldcraft with another employee that was working there at the time. So right in front of the 2009 recession, we bought Moldcraft, and we battled our way through 2009. Day to day, I currently work kind of on the banking and accounting, HR side of stuff, where my business partner does the sales and quoting side of the business. So, like, if you talk about I think it's OES, where they have the visionary and the integrator. I'm the integrator role, where I help to get the things implemented into the shop. And I'm in charge of keeping track of the business plan, the key performance indicators, etc. And occasionally I get to go back to my roots and do a mold design concept for the sales team to figure out how we're going to build the mold. Our realization that we needed help in the culture world, I'll say, was in 2010. Like I said, we bought in 2007. We went through 2009. We were kind of the tail wagging the dog. We were just hanging on. We didn't know really how to run a business, and now we're leading the people that we used to work with, which is kind of a unique thing. So in 2010, we started working with a company called Profit Builder Network, where we implemented a one-page business plan. And what that really helped us do was get our thoughts on how Moldcraft should look onto a piece of paper with our vision, a 3-year vision, and then out 5 and 10 years. But most importantly, we found from that was like our guiding principles and how Tim and I are going to operate the company, and sharing that with our employees, that these are the key things that we're looking to portray to the industry and to our customers. And then we continued to expand responsibilities to our employees, and not have them be afraid to fail. We work in a very precision, tight tolerance world, and we're trying to introduce robotics and automation. And so if you mess up one thing, you're on your setup, now you're going to build 10 things wrong because it's set up to do the same exact thing in the robot. But we need to push that envelope. And part of the culture was, the old school was you get yelled at and beat down, and you already feel bad when you wreck something. So we had to really change that to let them know that it was okay to fail and to reach and push the envelope. And it just continues. It's trickling down further within the organization. And it's really doing well for us.
That's awesome. Actually, I really appreciate you bringing up the guiding principles, because I think that from everything I've understood is the foundation of culture, right? So it's interesting that you kind of remember that moment. So all right, thanks for the introduction. And Justin, Moldcraft, we've been working with them since I think 2001. So we've been working with you guys a long time, and it's been fun seeing. I know I've enjoyed seeing what you guys have been doing with the business and the growth and the culture that, at least outwardly, I see it. So that's been kind of cool from kind of an outsider perspective with your organization. So Day James, he's Mytech. He's the director of client employee experience at Mytech. So Day, can you take it away and tell us a little bit about yourself, as well as your role in culture and some of the history of culture in Mytech?
Yeah, more than pleased to. Thanks for the opportunity to be involved in our broadcast today. I'm really excited about this. So a little bit about, I'm going to introduce myself first, and then I'll get back around to the Mytech part. So I work for Mytech Partners. Mytech is an IT company. We provide outsourced IT for our clients. But my personal background has absolutely nothing to do with IT. I have worked in advertising agencies for a while. I toyed with doing voiceover work for TV and radio commercials and that kind of thing. And then I found myself moving in the year 2000 to Minneapolis, and moved here almost sight unseen, and didn't have a job. And the first job I took was for a company that provides IT services. And this was, if you guys remember, back in the year 2000, there was a lot of capital venture related growth happening. The internet was kind of starting to seed a lot of that, and went to work for a company that provided IT services for small businesses like law firms, architectural firms, that sort of thing. It's kind of amusing as I look back in retrospect. I must have just used sheer charm and wit to get that job, because I certainly didn't have the technical firepower to be hired. So, but it all worked out, and for a while. And that company, and it all crashed. That company went out of business, and I found myself unemployed, and that's how I met. I'm one of the co-founders of the business. That's how I met my fellow owners here at Mytech. So we started, one of our clients basically said, you should just keep doing what you're doing, we'll be your first client. So we started Mytech. That was in the year 2000, and here we are today, all these years later. So in the beginning, you know, Mytech, we're an IT company, right? And we, you know, when you're building a business that's that youthful in its you know, lifespan, you kind of have to focus on the mechanics of the business, and that's what we did. And I'm going to kind of park there, because I know we're going to come back around on a more detailed question relative to this here in a bit. But I'll say, with some brevity, I'll say that at some point we realized that we're going to have to start paying a little bit more attention to the people in our business as opposed to the mechanics of our business. And there were a couple of triggers or gateways that we walked through, Nathan, that definitely were eye-opening experiences and have led me to where I am today. So my responsibilities today are, as Director of Client and Employee Experience, it's really about engagement. I oversee a number of programs that measure and try to just keep track of how our employees are doing. Are they happy? Are they engaged? What's our attrition, retention rate? And also I do the same thing for our clients, client retention. I oversee a number of engagement programs where we have other companies that are expert in helping measure feedback from our staff and from our clients, so that we kind of have a sense of how that trends from month to month to month. I'm particularly, I'd like to think, I hope I'm particularly adept at a program that we launched here a few years ago called Make a Difference. Maybe that's a great place for me to stop. And I know you have a couple of questions that we all three can probably answer in a relevant way. I'll touch on Make a Difference a little bit later on.
All right, thanks, Dave. Yeah, it's been, Dave played the primary role of you know, sales in our organization for up until about last year, and so it's been great to see him transition into this new role to help us have a better focus on us all being better leaders and managers of the organization to help have a positive impact on our team. So it's good to have someone like that in charge of that directive. So, all right, Melanie, I'm going to go back to you, and so you all probably touched on this a little bit in kind of your introduction, but so every organization has culture, but not every organization is intentional about building a great culture. Can you share your story about, you know, when you realized, and, you know, you've been at, you know, PPL for 18 years, when you realized you needed to be intentional about building a great organizational culture at PPL? And then I'll go to Justin and Day as well. So Melanie, take it away if you can. Share a little story about that.
Sure.
Remember that moment.
Probably, as with other organizations and companies, it's a process. I think the trip out to visit Zappos was pretty eye-opening, that to see that there's that amount of attention and resources being paid to the kind of culture you're wanting to create within your organization, and that you can be really intentional about it, that you can create something that aligns with your vision and your mission, and talk very explicitly about what values or shared values you would like to have in your organization. And so while before that and since that, we know that PPL has been unique. We've had even the experience of a handful of staff leave and go on to other opportunities, but come back. And we know that that's because of the culture and that it's unique here, but being able to call out specifically what that is has been a bit of a gray area. So we do address it. We have addressed it over the years in terms of conversations around retention and how we onboard staff and what's the atmosphere like here in the office, work-life balance. There's a bunch of different ways in which we do work and spend time talking about it, but have gotten more specific recently. Prior, we knew that the culture here at PPL we're not particularly entrenched in a hierarchical environment. We're not, quote, corporate. We are a nonprofit, and we meet our participants where we're at. There's just some general things like that seem to be commonly held and understood across the organization. But to get more specific, we took the results of conversations over the last several years where we've talked to staff and different groups of stakeholders, and as recently as last month, worked on taking the information that we'd collected and put it into a culture statement, and recently brought that out and talked to the staff about it, who had already provided some input, but wanted them to see what this draft looked like. I can just share a few of the things that landed on this statement are, we share a passion for supporting people on their journey towards self-reliance. We respect the dignity and tenacity of our residents and participants. We trust and support one another. We recognize and respect individual differences. We work with joy and optimism because we believe we can make a difference in the world. Are just a few of them. We asked our leaders to go and take this back to the staff meetings and ask them what resonates, what are we doing well currently, what's missing, and what are your ideas to help us live this out more fully. We came together just yesterday to talk about the reaction, and I would say overall it was generally good. A prevailing response was that it was too long. So coming up with some additional wordsmithing that will help us distill these thoughts a little bit, but a lot of really good conversation about how we then live this. We talked about the importance of the subcultures that exist within our organization. We need, there was an overwhelming reaction to call out more the importance of the racial equity work that we're doing. And I don't know if now is a good time to talk about that, but that definitely is a very important part of the culture that we're in and that we participate in, because 80% of the people that we serve are people of color. And in 2015, in our strategic plan, for the first time in the organization's history, called out the reduction of racial disparities as one of our main goals. And so a lot of the work that we've done and has become a part of our culture has to do with staff cultural competency and how we're going about achieving that within our organization. So that also has become a big part of it. So the reaction to the culture statement had to do with calling that out more than we had. It seems like it's an ever-moving, evolving body of work, but we know that we're getting close to having something more specific to work with.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And I like your cultural competency. I have a feeling it might go into a little more detail on that on another question. Justin, what about you? You even referenced it in your introduction, saying that, hey, kind of the old school way was if you make a mistake, you kind of get berated and you already feel bad, and you really made an intentional shift of trying to change that. So every organization. So you started with a culture that wasn't one you created because you were working there, but you then had a transition to really driving that change. So what was kind of you mentioned the moment. It was kind of like when you sat down and did that one-page plan and all that. So can you elaborate on that and maybe tell a little bit more about that story?
Yeah, I guess as we were growing, so in 2009 we had to let go 25% of our workforce due to to the bad economic times. So that went from 40 down to 30 people. And that was a huge, obviously that was very difficult. Like I said, we had been working with those as employees with each other, coworkers, just not a couple of years before that. So that was the worst time in our Moldcraft history as my tenure there, almost 19, no, just over 19 years now. But so, then we had to start hiring people back, and eventually when business picked back up, and our culture, even from the old culture, was to hire from the bottom and let people grow from within. So that, and we've maintained that, and that really works well, to promote from within as much as possible. Tim and myself became owners through that process, and we wanted to continue that and hopefully offer that to our employees at some point. But so when we're hiring newer and younger employees, they were just different. They didn't grow up in that type of here's how it's going to be done iron fist culture. They prefer more flexible hours. A lot of them, including myself, were having families during this time, and kids and families and sports and all that stuff takes a lot of time, and it's really working on the life work balance. That seemed to be a lot of it, where we started seeing, our eyes were opening to the way the company was going to have to run in order to keep the employees, and allowing flexible hours. I mean, we're not like total flex hours. We have core times when we need to be. You can start at either 6 or 7, so that's pretty flexible. And actually, it's more varied than that. But we start no later than 7. And but there's actually, there's a couple guys now that doesn't even work. So, but we work with them, and that really helps. And our retention rate, I don't have an exact number, but it's phenomenal. I did look just recently, and the last person that we had to let go was 2 years ago for not working out. So we're definitely doing things right. The company, the employees appreciate the flexibilities that we've weaved into the work that we do.
That's great. I think you hit on something that has not been overtly mentioned yet, and that's about well, Day mentioned is kind of introductory, but it's about retention, right? We all invest in our teams for growth and for professional development and skill set and all that, and that's really expensive, and not only is it expensive to the organization, but it has a negative impact on your clients, right? If you end up having to retrain, because then there's possibly more errors and things like that. So it's interesting that you definitely overtly connected the investing in culture and really trying to create a positive work environment to retaining people that are doing a great job, right? So
yeah,
so
we haven't,
you kind of calling out some of those.
Yeah, and we haven't directly focused on it, but I heard somewhere along the way that happy employees make happy customers. If the employees enjoy what they're doing, they enjoy working with the customers they will experience a good product at the end of the day.
Absolutely. All right, DAY. I call Day DAY, by the way, because oftentimes when he would introduce himself, people say, "Hi, I'm Day," and then they'll say, "Hi, Dave." And so instead of just, he's like, "No, Day, DAY." So that I always call him DAY. So DAY, please take it away. Tell us a little bit about, in particular, a couple defining moments. I guess that's what I'm kind of looking for. Is what if you look back, when was there a defining moment where it was like, gosh, we need to work on this, or this is something that we feel is really important for our organization? Can you hit on a couple of those moments, or one of those moments at least?
Yeah, so the quick diversion, like the DAY thing, it's really interesting how that has permeated that in itself has permeated our culture here at Mytech. We have new employees that'll start, and they're like, "What is this DAY business?" And I sort of have to explain it to people. And it's my real name. It's not some nutty nickname named after some past generations in my family, but people here are quite amused at how Nathan Austin is always calling me DAY, and other employees do too. So anyway, so yeah, so a couple of I'll just call it milestones in Mytech's history. You know, all those early years, we just really were heads down, focused on building our business, and you know, honestly, we weren't completely sure about what we were doing. And here we are. There's 4 owners of the business at that time, and we all were sort of, we'd have these meetings, we'd make decisions, the 4 of us would either vote yay or nay on whatever, you know, initiative we're thinking about. And then in the year 2007, I would say this was one of the big events for us. I'm going to kind of pin down 2 for Mytech. But in the year 2007, we decided through some conversation with other peers that everybody was saying, you probably you should do a SWOT. So strengths, weakness, opportunity, threats, right? We had somebody that was good at exercising a SWOT. We'd never done that, and we all, 4 of us and a moderator kind of met with us, and we sat down and spent a couple of days working through all the details. And what came out of that was life-changing for us. Basically, it amounted to, look, you guys, this is not a democracy. Even though there's 4 equal owners of the business, you need to pick out someone to lead your business and then to further define the roles for each of you. So we did. We identified one of us as CEO. We identified somebody as like a chief technology officer. And then Nathan Austin and I took on the role of business development for the company. And so Nathan mentioned this earlier. I spent years in that role, just basically being a salesman for Mytech services. So a little bit about the 4 of us. We had and have different. There's 3 of us. One of our partners exited last year, but the 4 of us had very, very different personalities. A couple of us were very technically oriented. A couple of us kind of live and breathe and love looking at spreadsheets, and a couple of us didn't. And so I think for Mytech, that proved to be very fortuitous, because the personality that each of us brought to the business, and maybe it's partly because we're all like equal owners, slowly but surely through the years, especially after that SWOT in 2007, through the years, our wildly different personalities started to permeate our departments. So then years passed, Mytech's growing. Yeah, we went through that whole business in 2008 too. It's tough couple of years there for sure. We had to buckle down batten down the hatches and get through it all. And to do that, we were all focusing heavily on, again, like I mentioned earlier, the mechanics of the business. Well, as we emerged from that difficult time and we started growing, we started seeing some pretty tremendous growth, like 30, 35, 40% growth year after year after year. And it just got the best of us, honestly. It was a tiger by the tail at that point. And so now all of a sudden we have departments, people managing departments. There were times that I remember we split departments into different parts of the building. So sometimes I didn't know what was going on over in another part of the business. And we began to see some real communication issues, some real problems. So that was the second milestone for us. We realized that the differing personalities that the 4 of us had, combined with the fact that we now have different departments, I'm just going to call this, we had a huge communication problem. And maybe there is a third one. The third thing is just recently we redesigned. I know there's a question coming up here about this, so I'll wait to answer them. But we completely refocused our mission, vision, value statements, and that was also a significant contributor to how we treat culture now. And so culture for us today is heavily dependent on our feedback and the participation from our employees. We're highly dependent on what they think and do. Most of our hiring process and our day-to-day workflow is much dependent on what our employees think as it is what we, the owners, think. I'll stop there for now.
All right, yeah, thanks. You know, it's interesting. As Melanie, you mentioned, we all kind of go, it's more of a process than a moment. You know, but as we all look back, there's different defining moments on, you know, how we kind of go, had to make different changes. So I kind of want to go back to Justin, you know, because Melanie, you touched on it a little bit already, but I want to go to Justin around how did you go about defining, you know, I think you called it principles in your introduction. I don't know, I mean, we call it mission, vision, and values, but I don't know if you call it just mission or just values, or like Melanie, you kind of mentioned like a culture statement. So Justin, what process did you go through to kind of define what those core principles are for Moldcraft?
Yeah. So we partnered with Profit Builder Network, who has a one-page business plan model. So it's literally on one piece of paper, and there's 4 quadrants. So we define the mission as top to bottom integrity, no tolerance, plus or minus 1/10,000th of an inch. So obviously you need to have a little wiggle room, and 1/10,000th of an inch is how accurate we hold our steel. So there's a little play on words there, I guess. But
yeah,
so
you
know, they helped us. What's that?
A little wiggle room, 1/10,000th of an inch. That's awesome.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't understand that, that's taking a sheet of paper and slicing it into 40 pieces, the thin way, like wow. The edge of it. You know, you can't see it with the naked eye, is what I guess what I'm saying. But so I guess how we did it was they helped us. I mean, they had a list of questions that we would go through, and tried and broke down the individual pieces of it. So yeah, so we have, you know, the mission, the vision of what it will look like in 3 years, et cetera. You know, like to be the industry leader in designing and manufacturing precision custom injection molds. We talked about revenues and that kind of thing, and like what our ultimate customer would look like. You know, how much sales volume we want them to be. Because we're not going to have 100 customers. We have like 10 that put a lot of work into Moldcraft, and because it's such a relationship process, you know, we really had to focus in on that. So every time a new opportunity comes in for us, we've developed a filter, which is a series of questions to ask ourselves and or ask that potential customer. Does the customer fit? Can be the first question, and then does the project that they're bringing to us, specifically that project, does that fit? So it's really, I guess it was a series of questions that we went through to help come up with that. And the third one that I talked about was our guiding principles, was the thing, like our strategies, like you know, build brand through in-depth customer data with a strong web presence, social media, doing trade shows, you know. So that would be one of the things. And our core values being integrity, loyalty, cutting edge innovation. So we're looking for customers that are at the peak of the industry. We don't want the guy that's molding parts in his garage. That's not cutting edge. We want the guy that's got a molding machine with robotics on it, doing it with end-of-arm tooling, fully automated process. The press runs day and night with nobody looking at it. So it just happened to be a series of questions there that were like, what types of customers are you happy to work with? What kinds of customers make you the most profit? You know, and those types of things. And then, you know, spending time on that 80% of that customer base is the same as spending your valuable time on 80% of the employees. There's always the ones that are tough to work with. They're not at the peak, and you continually have to go through that list of people, and if they're not a fit for your company, or if they're not a fit for that role, that's another thing that we've done is been able to use this not to get rid of an employee, but find the right seat on the bus for them. Because if they have our mentality, our culture, that's a huge part of it, and then we can teach them the skills they need in a different role.
Yeah, that's good. You referencing Jim Collins there, right? Right person on the bus, rather than the right seat, right? So,
yep.
No, that's good. I appreciate how you kind of you wrapped. It's not just about the mission, vision, values, or guiding principles, or your core values. It is about the entire business and the ecosystem, really, of your clients, your staff, and what's the right fit for you. So I appreciate you kind of going through that. So just because you mentioned that one, and from time perspective, I want to hit on. Melanie, I'm going to go to you, and I guess I'd like to think about a moment, like one of the most memorable or interesting or unique activities or events or things that you did internally with your team around culture, right? And that could be like a quarterly event that you do, it could be an annual event that you do, it could be a one-time thing you did. I'm just curious, like, because my goal here is to try and give folks that are listening ideas that they might be able to say, gosh, that sounds really cool. I'd like to try and do that in my organization. So, Melanie, I'd like to start with you, putting you on the spot a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
What would that be for you and from your perspective?
You know, I gave this one some thought, and this is probably a pretty unique example. So it doesn't fall into the category of a big party or anything quite like that, but I think it's unique to the work we do. That following some of we've had some tragic community deaths, etc., and there's a pretty great impact on the people that we serve when things like that happen, and on our staff. And so we've had occasion a couple times over the last few years, sadly, where kind of large tragedies like that have happened, that we welcome the staff to come together as a large group, whoever is interested in doing so, to just participate in a conversation and a listening session about where folks are at with it. How are their clients or participants doing with what's happened? A lot of folks speaking from their own experience, maybe as a person of color, and how that's impacting their life. And finding that to be a pretty powerful and unique experience. And I think it has made a big difference for a lot of the staff that work here to work somewhere where the culture includes a lot of openness and providing of safe spaces for people to talk and listen and learn from one another.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, and that varies by, like it's very, it's not specific to just DPL, but it because of the work you do, you are exposed to probably more of that than maybe other industries are, other organizations are.
Right.
So that, although we had that happen a year ago, and I remember we had never encountered anything like that.
Sure.
And that just hadn't happened, and so that's a great suggestion and recommendation, because it will probably happen. It's always unfortunate, but that does happen and will happen to folks, and that's a good way. It's a good suggestion as far as a way to make sure people have space and time to
Right.
work through it and pull together. So
yeah, and I'll just add that there's something like that, something like we provide. We just refer to them as quiet rooms, where if people need to take a moment away from their desk, or we have Muslim students or staff that need time and space to pray, there's a place where they can do that, or we offer yoga. All of those things might be things that a person doesn't take advantage of as a staff person at PPL, but oftentimes knowing that those things are available also has an impact. And so sometimes thinking about what you're offering, even though it may not be something that's used by a large number of your staff or something that everyone engages in, it has meaning to others as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, so Justin, I'd like to throw this one back to you. Same kind of comment. Is there is there something that sticks out in your mind as far as something that you and Tim or the organization or Moldcraft do that you think is has a positive impact on culture that it might be a good suggestion for others to try? A story you can tell there?
Yeah, so I'll just keep a quick one here. I know time's tight here. But so we put up a cork board, bulletin board, I guess, in our little kitchen break room area, with 3 headings: things for sale, events and announcements, and then a shout out area. So events and that kind of thing, that's like to show your kids graduating, or pictures of your kid playing baseball or something fun like that. Things for sale, that's literally just a classified area to sell stuff. And then the shout out is kind of unique, where other employees do a shout out on other employees. So you don't sign who's actually writing it, but you shout out to the person that you caught doing something good. I think that's kind of a fun thing to do. And then also at our monthly stand-up meetings, I also open up the floor to that, where people can shout out on to employees, and I have several of them that I do also.
Awesome. That's great. Day, I do want to see, like, pick 1 or 2 things that that you feel that we might do that's unique, that could be again, maybe just interesting, or a takeaway for folks.
Yeah, I can make it super brief too, Nate. 2 things come to mind. One thing's called Make a Difference. It's a program that we do where we assign animal types based on their personality. So like someone might have a lion personality, or a monkey personality, or a camel or a turtle personality. And we do quarterly sessions, quarterly half-day sessions, where we get everybody in a big room and we run through some really fun exercises, a lot of laughter and camaraderie. People really from different departments in the organization get to know each other. And then when we're done, everybody gets a stuffed animal and a nameplate with their animal type. And we've really baked that into our organization. And so much so, in fact, that I've had other IT companies and other peers and groups out there in the business community ask me to come and do these programs for them. Called Make a Difference. The other thing is we do something called Hertz Donuts. And it's a simple little thing where
which is different than the typical it's different than what people think of when you say Hertz Donut.
Yeah, no, what it is we have an employee, we have a very quirky employee named Sarah Hertz, and in fact she insists on being called Hertzy. She's just a riot. Everybody loves her. She's just super fun, good at her job too, I have to add. But she kind of developed this program as a way to compliment fellow employees. When we see somebody who's done a good deed or a good job at something or a task, every employee in our business has these little cards called Hertz Donuts. And it's just her quirky way of calling out someone. And so if I see that Nathan, for example, has done a good job at something, I can give him, if I choose to, I don't have to ask for permission, I can give him a Hertz donut. It looks like a little business card. It says Hertz. It's got a picture of a donut and the little logo on it. And that is kind of a free little gift for any of our employees, that any of our employees can give to any of our other employees at any time. That helps develop just a sort of a way to feel good about our fellow colleagues without having to go through too many bureaucratic steps.
Yeah, and the only thing that I'd add to that, Day, is that the Hertz Donut, part of the shout out is you have to, we encourage, I guess you don't have to, but we encourage that you highlight a value so like whatever task or behavior or thing that was amplified, tie it to one of our values. So you're saying, hey, I really appreciate how you set the next person up for success when you did this, or how you fostered a culture of praise when you did that. Those are kind of one of the things we do to reinforce not just a shout out, because it's another way to do a shout out like you were suggesting, Justin, but it's also a way to highlight values to reinforce the values of the organization. So, okay, well, tell you what, we are at our time for everybody, so I want to be respectful, and I do want to hit on really quick. We have some upcoming events that is, I think I want to mention. That something that's new, and Justin, I know this is something that you and I talked about not too long ago, but is, and Melanie, a PPL, would definitely be able to take advantage of this. It's called a Microsoft Office 365 immersion experience, where it's a 3-hour session, basically block off a half day, but it's 3 hours of a guided tour of O365 in a not in your environment, it's in a simulated environment that's got pre-populated data, that's test data that you can just play with, and you can't break it. And so we actually walk you through a lot of the tools that many organizations are already paying for, but they don't know how to use. They're not sure why they should use it, and they're trying to learn about it. So it's a guided tour of how to learn about it. So we've got those going on in Minnesota on the 1st of June and July 13th. It looks like there's a RTH on there, and then in Colorado on June 21st and July 27th. So you can register for those, and we're going to be doing those on a regular basis. But these are very unique. Really want to help people use the tools they're already paying for. Is our goal there, and they're free. Then the live hacking demo. This is going to be cool, everybody. Like for everyone listening right now, we basically have I'm not kidding. One of the top 10 ethical hackers in the world who worked for the NSA, ex-NSA operative that did proactive and defensive cyber warfare. He was involved in that, and just crazy stuff. So he's going to be in Minnesota on July 25th, and then in Colorado on August 1st, kind of guiding through a live hacking demo. So those are a couple upcoming events that I wanted to share with everyone. Those can be found at mytech.com/events. And with that said, I want to thank the culture panel, Melanie. It's been great staying in touch with you over the years. Justin, thank you for participating and being a client for almost 18 years. PPL has been too, but I've worked with you directly on that. And Day, thanks for kind of telling us a little bit about Mytech. So any final thoughts or comments, panelists?
No, just appreciate the opportunity. It's a great topic, so I appreciate your invitation.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, awesome. Well, Justin, good luck, and you're finished and moving your house. And Melanie, talk to you later. And Dale, see you next week. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.